This meeting is now being recorded.
Okay, hello everybody. It is time to start today. So welcome to the Office of Information Management and Analysis, Brownback's webinar series. The webinar will be strictly a 30-minute event for both presentation and questions and answers. We'd like to remind you that OIMA Brownback webinar will continue next year in 2017. The next webinar will be on January 26th. It will be about sediment contaminants. Today's presentation is by one of our own, Melissa Morris. It is about quality assurance for open environmental data. Melissa Morris is a senior environmental scientist at the State Water Resources Control Board, Office of Information Management and Analysis. She currently serves as the Surface Water Ambient Monitoring Program's Quality Assurance Officer and Database Manager. Melissa has over 17 years experience in surface water quality monitoring, quality assurance, and data management services. She holds a Master's of Science degree in Biology from CSU Sacramento. So with this brief introduction, I will pass the phone to Melissa to start the presentation.
Thank you, Dewey. Good morning. My name is Melissa Morris, as Dewey announced. I do serve as SWRCB's QA officer and data manager. I've been with the board for a pretty long time. Data management and quality assurance is my passion. I was recently brought to state board to oversee SWRCB's data systems because they transitioned from contracting services to in-house state staff. I was very excited to join SWRCB and the Office of Information Management because I was offered a position to join quality assurance and data management, and that's honestly the way it should be because there's so much going on together that they need to talk to one another. They need to make sure that all the elements are followed through, and I'll talk about some of those elements today. Okay, so just an introductory slide. So what is open data? So open data is defined, or the idea that data should be freely available to anyone for any use without restriction. And this open data or big data concept has been going on for about 10 years or so and is really amped up recently. So why open environmental data? So today's presentation is less about surface water quality data and more about all the types of environmental data from air, water, trash, soil. So you could take any of the principles from this presentation and use them in your environmental studies. So one benefit is transparency, of course. There's always a need for government transparency. Efficiency. So this is one, I want to say a roadblock right now at the water boards is getting all of our data sets together. And open data kind of solves that for us because it provides that common platform where we can put our permit data, our the NPS permit data, the stormwater data, the surface water, the groundwater. We can put it all on this open data platform and use it all in our decision making. Very efficient compared to running down the individual staff and all of 13 units that manage this stuff. Inform the public and tell environmental stories. This is our advantage here is to, again, teach the public about, one, what do we do, and what did we find? Because the public wants to know, is my water safe to drink? Is my air clean to breathe? Where's the trash piling up? So on and so forth. Of course, combining all these data sets together enables us to make good decisions, and that's the fundamental mission of these government agencies. And innovation, bringing data together in unique ways is really a benefit to this Open Data Initiative, and that's the Water Board has actually recently joined the rest of California government at this data.ca.gov. So this is where we're putting all of our data right now. When I say all, I mean some at this point. We'll work on it. But if you go to this water emblem in the right-hand corner, you will find the Water Board's data on there. So now that all of our data is open, all open data are good, correct? Well, not necessarily. So big data, again, I've told you, in the past decade that the open data has taken root in a lot of states. And someone went through and decided to analyze whether or not that data that was being hosted by the governments was useful. So this article, they went out and interviewed about 75 public officials at 45 different states and asked them, how often do you run into problems with data quality? So integrity, accuracy, typos, missing elements, timeliness, and they asked them, how often do you frequently encounter quality issues? How often do you sometimes? Rarely. And I'll give you the graphic from this study in just a moment. Their findings were so interesting that they did a follow-up study and said, oh, wow, this problem is not only at the state level, it's also at the county and the federal. And so this is a major problem. And most government analysts are looking and say, well, how much does this cost us? Well, IBM came up with an estimation of $3 trillion, and that's all data encompassing. That's all government data, all business data, all the data that's being collected about you that you don't really think about, Facebook, your car, your smart TV, your Amazon Echo. So bad data in general is costly. And when you think about environmental monitoring studies, you're paying for the personnel to go out and collect that sample, the personnel to design the study. The laboratory folks, those analyses can run anywhere from $20 per sample to a couple thousand, depending on what you're looking at, and the people to look at the data and write the study. So if you don't go in with a plan to begin with, you may be wasting a whole lot of money. So let's get back to that first article. It's a very interesting graphic in there. I highly recommend reading this article. In that survey, 54% of those public officials said they encountered data quality issues frequently. 31% they said they encountered data quality issues sometimes, and 15% said often. But 15 plus 31 plus 15 equals 100%. 0% said rarely, and that's a problem. So what makes good data? Well, good data is synonymous with high-quality data. And data are generally considered high quality when you can actually use them for the intended purpose that you designed that study for. This also goes for open data. When you're collecting data from other sources, you might want to look at that data to see if it's useful to you. So what are the characteristics of good data? So if you Google good data, you'll get 20 or so different sites that argue over the different elements. And I've compiled them all for you here. And notice these are not, even though I put them in bold order, they're not in order. And there's no one of these elements that's more important than the other. Some people say, oh, accuracy is the most important. Well, as an open data user, that temperature data could be highly accurate, but you need water quality data. So I'm going to go through each of these characteristics as they relate to open data. So availability. Data are supposed to be easily accessible and shared common locations. We can have open data on 400 different websites, but it's not useful until it's in one location where anyone can find it. The data are in a format that are easily downloaded and combined. So some data are in PDF and some are in Excel and some of them are in text. That takes a little bit of time to compile. So it's easier if they're all in one format. That would be great. Machine readable. So I once had someone tell me that electronic data was the lab report faxed to me. Maybe if I had a really high quality scanner, that would be true, but it does take somebody to enter that from a fax, so machine readable would be great. Complete. The data set includes enough minimum data elements, data points, and metadata to support the use of the data. And I'll go over what minimum data elements are in just a minute. Relevant, the data are representative and useful. If you're doing a water study, you need water data. And you would hope, if it was an ambient study, that the sample that was taken represents the ambient conditions in that water body and not edge of field or from a pipe. And useful, we'll talk about that. Timely, sufficiently up to date. This is one that the Water Board tackles right now, is that the data can be everything that we want. It can be accurate, it can be accessible, it can be in a great format, all the metadata, but it's from the 50s. I really need to know about the drought today. Where was that data that was collected during the drought? Well, it's probably sitting on somebody's computer. So SWAMP is actively working towards making that data available as fast as possible without compromising the quality and metadata that's associated with it. Consistent, again, data conforms to minimum data standards. So this is, for example, like in CEDN, that the columns are filled out completely. The important stuff, like analyte, unit, the actual result would be great too. The station, the date, the time. So all of those columns, if they're filled out to the maximum that we have, and always talk to CEDN if you want more columns at it, if you fill those out, then we have enough information to know about where that sample was collected, when it was collected, what you did to the sample before it got to the lab. Did you filter it? Did you acidify it? What batch did it belong to? All this information leads to a quality data set or a complete data set. Standard vocabulary is a big one. I know USGS, some of the bigger organizations are tackling this right now, is you can have nitrogen in a database in 40 different ways, and sometimes that's a good thing if it's unambiguous, if it's total nitrogen, if you say it's dissolved, or it's all the nitrogen combined and it's all dissolved. So be specific. And pesticides are another big one. There's a multitude of trade names, so we want to narrow that down to have a common understanding of what that chemical is. Accuracy, this is the big one that everybody understands. It needs to be accurate, and this is the summation of accuracy and precision, that the level of error in the data was controlled. Notice I said no, does not have no error, because that's not possible. Error happens. It's systematic. It can be random. It happens in the laboratory. It happens in the field. And these aren't things that we can necessarily control precisely, but we can control the level of variability in that error. For example, a measurement quality objective for a pesticide being analyzed by HPLC. You could say we want a recovery between X and Y, and that's allowable, and that's useful to us. Credibility, so this is a weird one. It's the degree to which data are reliable and trustworthy. How do we communicate that to data users, or how do we get that information from a data provider? We'll talk about that today as well. So this is just a reminder, these are all the different characteristics who get data, but how do we get there? So open environmental data timeline. So these are the steps that each one of us as environmental monitoring scientists go through to get to the point of having data and then open data. Planning and provenance, data gathering, that's actually going on the field, gathering and analyzing the data. Informatics is a fancy word for the things you do to the data once you get it back from the lab. Systems and accessibility, this is about your access, this is about your SQL server, this is how you get that data up to that platform where you want to share it. And open data is obviously the result. So good data starts before you even go in the field. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. So quality assurance plans. These are your project plans, your sampling analysis plans, your program plans, even little write-ups that just say where you went, what you did, and how you want to do it. If you capture all those elements before you go out in the field, you're already off to a great start. First step to having that plan is knowing why you're going out to that site. Why do you need to be there? What do you want to collect? Because you shouldn't monitor for the sake of monitoring. You should go out there with an intent and say, I want to know this. So you develop your sampling plan around that question. Because if you need an N of 10, which is for your statistics, if you need 10 samples in that water body over a given time, then you better plan to go there 10 times. Or use data from another source that can get what you need. If they have 9 and you need 1 more, go out and get that sample and combine the two. Before you go out in the field, identify what you're going to sample for, because they have specific requirements. For example, in surface water, if I need to go out and collect nutrients, I need to have a pre-acidified bottle. I need to think of these things before I go out. Also, the plan is a great thing for communicating what you need to your labs and to the rest of your crews. So hand that quality assurance plan off to the lab and say, I need you to meet these limits on the air. And field crew, I need you to collect it in this certain way. So you want to identify standard operating procedures. This is just conformancy in the field and in the laboratory. Pretty straightforward stuff. And establishing your limits on your error, your measurement quality objectives. So there's this other word in here, this provenance. Provenance is a fancy word for the origin. In antique world, or antique art specifically, it's that authentic, well, I can't even say it. It's that document that comes with your painting that says, yes, this was painted by so-and-so on this date at this time. That's your quality assurance plan. So you fulfill the provenance requirement by having that plan and sharing it with your data user. Follow through. Now that you have the plan in place, make sure everybody's following it. Train your staff. Follow the plan. While they're out collecting samples, monitor them while they're monitoring the environment. Keep tabs on your laboratory and your field crew. Look at the data immediately when you get it back. Find out if there's any problems, because if there's any problems, you can correct it right away and put in preventative and corrective actions. Fancy word for go out and make sure it doesn't happen again and make sure that they know what they're doing. They're well-trained. Everything's going smoothly. An error does happen. Sometimes it's unexplained, but as long as you flag the data later, I'll show you why. And keep good records. Save your field sheets. Save your records. So again, this is just a refresher of the entire timeline. Now we'll move on to informatics. What do I do with the data when I get back from the laboratory or from the field? Review it. Just because your laboratory analyzed and flagged it doesn't mean it completely meets your needs. Often they flag the data based on their laboratory's quality assurance plan, not yours. So that's why it's important to communicate to them, hey, these are my limits, can you do it? So that's actually what my unit does, is we look at all of the data that comes in from all of the surface water laboratories for our program and make sure that it meets our quality assurance plan. So we're looking at accuracy, we're looking at those odd numbers. The ones that look like outliers might be outliers, or they might be typos. So communicate with the lab back and forth. Did you really mean 100 micrograms per liter? Because that's a lot. Yes, that's what we found. Okay, maybe I need to resample at this site to confirm this. Completeness. Did you give me all the information I asked for? Can I fill in this data template? Does it give me all the information I need? Did you give me all the quality assurance metadata so I can evaluate the quality as well? Validate. So you notice the other slide said verify. That means verify that everything was done as it should have been done. Validate. This is where you go in and say, is this useful to me? So you want to flag or qualify the data that fell outside the MQOs. If it hasn't already been done, confirm that it's been done. Flag the data that may not be useful. This is called a quality data assessment from EPA. Interesting read, but really long. I like to make sure that there's notes added to every single record that has something that makes it not normal. So if there's a quality assurance problem, I want to see a batch validation comment that says, the QA was out, but this is why this result is still good. There's usually other things, other quality control samples in the lab that they can use to say this data is still good even though the matrix spike was out, because that's not something that the laboratory can control. So all the information, all the metadata, as much as possible, add it to all your records. That way when the data user gets a hold of your records, they can say, you know, I really don't think we can use this record because it doesn't meet our quality objectives. Or, yes, I want to use this. This seems trustworthy. The laboratory's explained why this result was okay. Great, we'll use it. Data systems. So everybody has a different data system. That's okay. As long as it's robust and secure, great, and can put your data on that platform in the format that they want. And again, make sure your database can provide and store as much metadata as possible. It's one of the great things I like about CEDN is it records the environmental result as well as all the quality control. So I can do batch assessment on other people's data to see if Swamp wants to use it. And data access, this one's pretty easy. Find your open portal, put your data there. It's the best way for people to get access to your data, and a large website like the California one is a great source. But this is the sticky one, provide your QA plan. And so we just put our QA plans on the web if anyone's interested, they can go and download them. If they need anybody to confirm or explain what's in the QA plans, they can always call me. So one question I have for the next phase of our open data initiative is how do we connect the data to the QA plan? So again, just a timeline again. But remember that credibility section of the pie. How do you show that your data is trustworthy and reliable? By following through. Begin with your plan, follow through. The data should reflect that you followed through and you've recorded all your metadata. That's where people can rely on your data and know that the data coming from your organization is trustworthy because you carried out all these proper steps. So open data users. How do I find credible data? So this is one where you're going to have to put a little footwork right now to go find the QA planning documentation. You see a large data set in there, like for water quality, for swamp. We have QA plans on the web. Feel free to download them, go through them, call me if you have any questions. Review the data. Actually look at what you're downloading and see if it's what you need. You want to see if those analytes are unambiguous, that the units are useful to you, that there's quality control data there that you can also look at, that the data's been flagged and qualified. That's a big indicator that somebody actually followed through on their QA plan. And use credible data. So your studies are only as good as the data you put into them, so make sure when you're looking, you're gathering all these data sets, that there are quality data sets. You don't want your study dragged down by a little tiny bit of information that may throw off your entire trend line. And account for error. This is a big one, and a presentation in and of itself. At the water board, a lot of folks tend to take the 5 milligrams per liter seriously, and they say, oh, it's 5, it's absolutely 5, but really, it's a blur. It's 5 plus or minus some error, and if your goal is 5 and your result is 5, there's no guarantee that you exceeded your water quality goal or you're okay in your water quality goal. So this is a hard one right now, and SWRCB's working towards actually providing error in its metadata. So that was it. I raced through it.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. So we will unmute the people on the phone. In the meantime, if you have questions, you go ahead and...
All guests have been unmuted.
So you can call questions to Melissa.
Any questions in the room?
So if we're interested in developing an data project or something, we need to come to OIMA and you can assist staff in developing that and working with the other groups. We need to.
We can assist, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So you're the contact person for
If
that?
you want to.
I know.
I can get you the right person if I'm not. It is technically, but it's only surface water quality data. So open data brings in the groundwater and the air and all the other programs and databases. We have lots of databases in this office.
So does this that you show that all the different data, does that include all of
Jarma's in the room.
we have some many data sets on that open data platform. We have a data set for each of the categories. So we just make it available for that one. But not all of the data. Correct. Okay. It started with the chemistry data when we broke that up.
Excuse me, John. Can you keep closer and answer the question?
Oh yeah, so my question was, is all student data on not all there. We do have a lot of it there. We didn't put all of it there as it was our first, one of our first data sets, and so that had feed in, and it goes like 5 million records, and so we just broke that off just because of the constraints that I was having trying to upload it to there. We're working on a middleware process that GovOps, who operates that portal, working on, and we're hoping to use once we have it to have all the data sets we have available automatically refreshed at a certain time frame. That makes sense for the database that it's pulling from, but we haven't been able to complete that process yet.
So, Melissa, are there cases where you advise not to use this data, or just know that? What do you do? And it's extremely
Case-by-case basis. So if I need extra data for a project for SWAMP, I would download that data first, probably contact the project managers, see what quality assurance documents there, and go through it case-by-case, line-by-line, see if it's what we need. In the quality assurance project plan section called indirect data, and that actually pertains directly to what we're talking about today, is what are you going to be looking for in data that you did not produce? So I'm writing that for SWAMP right there.
be more complicated to use.
Okay, Yellen?
Hey, Melissa, thanks for this very informative presentation. It's really eye-opening. It sounds like you laid out steps for, we are the designer, collector, and viewer of the data. We know what to do. Water boards collect tremendous amounts of data through their permittees and permit conditions. In general, tell us about quality assurance posting requirements for those, and is there a plan to put all our information, data collected from our permittees onto the open data portal?
For your last question, I am not certain that there is a plan right now to put the permittee data up on the open data platform. But did you want to?
Yeah, for permittee data or data that they have submitted, we're working on a connection between COX that gets data from MPS permit holders for their receiving water data. We're planning to move their receiving water data to CDIN and then continue to update that portal. I've also been in contact with representatives from GeoTracker to put some of their data sets on the open data portal as well. And so I imagine some of that will be those people that are in the cleanup sites and such that are submitting data to GeoTracker. I haven't seen I haven't looked at the specific data set yet.
Is that a goal, or the board determine all the data that's put into this open portal?
There's no time frame. We're encouraging it.
For the quality conditions exist in the permit itself, and at the 3,000-foot level, there is a plan in development that's getting ready for signature for a quality assurance program plan for NPDES permits. That is in the works, and you'll see a final document soon. And that should set the stage for the permit writers to start looking at quality, making sure that it's already in the permit.
I did want to answer there about making data, a requirement to make data available. AB 1755, the Open and Transparent Water Data Act, that recently was signed, and that does require some data sets to be made available, but I don't know all the details there. So there are some requirements there, but so I just want to contradict that.
Yeah, and we are working with that effort with the Department of Water Resources.
Thank you.
Any questions on the phone?
Yes, hi, this is Tom Schlosser. Thanks for this presentation. Some of the questions in the room are audible on the phone, but the question I have is, could you say a little bit more about what data sets are available under the icon of water in this open data portal? And so, for example, if I was trying to find data about pesticide use in the lake area, how would I find that?
Currently on the Open Data portal, we have the water boards have provided data from CEDN, data from SWRCB, which are for regulatory programs, discharges to surface water and regulated discharges to surface water and land disposal. And also from our SMART system, which is stormwater regulatory data. As far as your specific question about pesticide, CR has not yet participated in the Open Data portal, and so there's no pesticide use data. There are any data that has been submitted to CEDN that includes monitoring for pesticides. You could find that there. Yeah.
This is Rich Brewer. You can get pesticide use data from the Department of Pesticide Regulation at their website.
Rich?
Yeah. Hello?
I just said it wasn't user-friendly.
Can you ask people to mute their phone? There's like a whole conversation going on somewhere. Phone. So someone's having a full conversation. It's like bleeding right into the microphone. I can't barely hear you guys.
Yeah, we are trying to use the same keys one by one, but not all of them. All of them, they can't ask questions.
So I don't know if you heard my comment, but pesticide use data is available from the Department of Pesticide Regulation. And it's usually about 2 years in arrears. It takes them about 1.5 years to 2 years to get all of the pesticide use data into their data systems. And they also have their water quality monitoring data for pesticide work that their environmental monitoring program does is also online as well.
Any more questions from the phone?
Well, this is Gina Solomon from Cali, PA. I also was having some trouble hearing over the noise on the phone line in the Q&A. But I was interested in the issue of crowdsourced data because that is something that's coming up over and over again in all kinds of contexts. And how, it seems that the problems described here will be greatly multiplied when crowdsourced data is coming at us from the general public and citizen scientists. And do you have any suggestions for ways to strengthen some of these elements even more and maybe move to a place where we might be able to incorporate some of that type of information in the future?
Education, number one. We actually have a citizen scientist monitoring outreach through SWAMP, where we teach about quality assurance and sample collection, and there's lots of useful videos that anybody can watch and learn how to properly collect samples. There certainly needs to be some more work done on what to do with the data once you get it from the laboratory, but education is our number one support mechanism to ensure that the data coming from outside groups is quality.
Take the question from the chat.
Yes, we have one question. Who would be a good contact if we would like to learn more about the CEDN data transfer format? Okay, so a good contact would be Jarma Bennett, who's been also in the Office of Information Management and Analysis. And I guess we could send out Jarma's contact.
Let me get back to the end of my presentation where we have a help desk box where you can send any questions you have, and we'll make sure it gets to the right person. That might be easier than trying to spell out a, whoops, let me get that back. So feel free to jot down the OIMA help desk at waterboards.ca.gov, and we'd be happy to forward your question to the appropriate person.
Okay, thank you all for coming and have a nice holiday. We will see you on the next webinar. Thank you, Melissa, for coming and making the presentation. Thank you.
The host has left the meeting. So at this time, the meeting will come to an end. Thank you and goodbye.